Tobirama versus Obito is actually quite interesting, with Tobirama having not only led the charge against Jubito, but the standard of speed for his generation being only surpassed by the likes of Madara, whose closest thing to a protege, Obito, was only ever truly defeated by Tobirama's stylistic successor. So, who would actually win if Obito and Tobirama were to fight in the war? Shooting for 20k, let's go. Upon realizing the cruel weight of reality was that of a cold corpse of the woman he once loved, alongside a maddening, all-consuming wish, Obito would don the mask and the will of Madara Uchiha, the Reaper himself, who Obito thought was the guide through purgatory, but was in fact the gatekeeper to hell itself. After training under Madara for several years, contrary to common belief, he would then set his eyes on the 4th Hokage, the strongest living shinobi, ultimately killing him through means of Kurama, who he controlled with a genjutsu so powerful Kurama thought he was Madara himself. Alongside Kushina and countless other Konoha citizens in this battle, Obito would demonstrate that he could not only hold Minato through a mechanically advantageous position, but even match his speed to some degree and ultimately tank his Renegon attack, despite the fact that even Minato's raw strength was able to plant his feet and stop the entire Ninetales arm. And it would actually be through the Flying Raijin that he would ultimately be defeated here, as even though his Kamui is such that it brings that which is conceptual into reality, the Flying Raijin is a jutsu that transcends the concepts of space and distance themselves, where against Minato, his true power was only shown in glimpses due to most of his abilities, yes he has other things outside of Kamui, are just pointless. However, once declaring war against all 5 nations, he would arguably battle the strongest living shinobi on the planet once again, but this time in Minato's son, Naruto, whose link with Kurama allowing for KCM2 could literally slap away country-wiping Biju bombs with a swipe of his chakra, whose coming out was a life-saving contribution to the Renegon blast on Obito, which he tanked, although the former point at least locks in the idea that Obito was going to murder KCM1 Naruto, Kakashi, and Guy, 3 KCM1 level opponents at once if it wasn't for this attack. Likewise, Tobirama could also hence transcend these KCM1 levels through his ability to completely outspeed Naruto and Sasuke's combo attack, along with their ability to react to the explosive Truth-Seeking Orb, wherein though Jubito's power is fluctuating, he was still capable of placing multiple bombs across Jubito's body through one of 2 means. The first of which is that he had the bombs stored in his body, where Jubito just ran straight into him, and the second is that he tossed them out utilizing the same arm as his Flying Raijin placement, being his right hand's extension, something Obito could also replicate except on arguably a greater speed, being against Kakashi's Kamui in a weaker form, although that's neither here nor there, seeing as ultimately in terms of pure reaction, or rather pure reaction how it could be capitalized upon, Tobirama is just superior to Obito, having been able to actually mentally react to revived Renegon Madara, which is possibly more impressive with the following remarks from Madara that note that, quote, Tobirama used to boast the fastest speed of any shinobi, which is directly associated with his Flying Raijin, seeing as when contextualizing speed statements in Naruto, unless specified, that which is being discussed is always accounting for the peak speed they have access to. For most shinobi, this is naturally body flicker, like in the 4th Raikage's example, where he stated that he's the fastest shinobi alive despite nearly losing a battle of speed to Sasuke in terms of kill efficiency, where Databook 4 remarks that he's not inferior to the Yellow Flash, and there he's performing body flicker, although in Flying Raijin user cases like Minato, Obito states that he is so fast off the basis of his Flying Raijin itself. Likewise, Tobirama's Flying Raijin, and even perhaps the reaction necessary for him to capitalize on the relevance of that, is not only just beyond Madara's but Hashirama's as well, at least in their base states, as he's still not a match for their higher forms and avatars, but regardless, this does still allow for Tobirama to prevent basically any face grabs and hard blitz attempts from Obito. However, this does not mean that he just wins. In terms of raw combat speed specifically, Obito is more than capable of reacting to and combating not only KCM2 Naruto, but even firing pressing attacks of his own. When utilizing speed-based techniques like the wood style, he can completely catch and then restrain Naruto. Couple that with his defensive speed, it gets quite ridiculous. Kamui is actually capable of completely passing through KCM2 Naruto's chakra arms, which are nearly a blitz level above himself, being closely correlated to the Susanoo speed amps. For as to why this is so crucial, is that while yes, it also means that Tobirama can't blitz and slice Obito's throat, on top of Obito already being able to tank the Executioner's Blade, it means that Tobirama's greatest weapon is nulled. his water style. Tobirama was proud of his exceptional combat ability, and among them, his expertise in water style was later revived, where it was shown halting the strongest fire style in the world, Hirzen's Dragon Flame Bombs, likely of the same caliber of Obito's Madara level fire style in the Bomb Blast Dance. Such prowess was said to flood battlefields with tsunamis of water, according to the 1 Decade 100 Ninja Guide, which also hails his Water Lance as something that can cut anything in the world, up to the 5 Kage Summit that is, but that's still saying a lot, and would literally include things like the wood style, but I digress. Point being is that though his water style could likely overpower Obito's fire style, none of them can bypass the Kamui. But that's not to say nothing he has will bypass the Kamui. Calling back to an earlier point, Minato is capable of completely slamming Obito with the Renegon and then placing a flying Raijin seal. Many people just chalk this up to him forcing the intangibility. However, that inherently presupposes that Obito was being perception blitzed still during the placement of that seal, meaning Minato could get behind Obito, blast the Renegon, deactivate it, activate a flying Raijin seal, place it, and continue driving him into the ground, all before Obito's brain could fire a single signal, which is great for Minato stock, but let's be real, that's a bit crazy. So let me call back to another aforementioned statement, being that the flying Raijin and similar sealing ninjutsu surpass the concepts of space and distance themselves. Obito's Kamui is functionally dependent upon something that is passively and naturally immaterial being made material in correlation to space. So if sealing ninjutsu transcends spatial concepts, then this immaterialization is, well, irrelevant. This fits with how Minato could then place a separation seal on him when Obito literally has no reason to be forcing his intangibility and doesn't do it in instances similar against Fu and Torine. Like, do you really think he's just monologuing with his pants down, ready to get slammed again? No, of course not. It's just that the flying Raijin transcends the materialization and lack thereof. So, Tobirama actually does have a way to tag Obito in the flying Raijin, although it's crucial to note that Tobirama doesn't naturally rely on the flying Raijin like Minato, and is more dependent upon other things like his water style, so this is probably going to come out as a flying Raijin marking at the latter half of the fight, perhaps as a means of Tobirama to act out his MO of striking an opponent when they are sure of victory, but for what he could actually strike him with is, well, nothing. Unless Obito does manage to materialize, which in that case he can literally tank both Hokage Minato's and KCM2 Naruto's Renegon. To further their really weird thematic similarities, a strategy Tobirama could aim for is tandem paper bombs as a means to just overwhelm Obito into a hopeful materialization. I'm not going to suggest we can know if Tobirama can decipher Kamui or not. The second data book states that Hirzen's file that, quote, the third made an effort to develop the Konoha village that the first and second made, ultimately attributing the village formation as fruits of both Hashirama and Tobirama, befitting with the other praise regarding his political acumen that guided Konoha's diplomacy through Hashirama's era almost entirely, using not just a sword, but a pen. It would also be through his guidance that the Bijou were distributed within the manner they were, opening the doors for diplomacy to come. If you ought to add the timeline together, Tobirama was only Hokage for roughly 2 years, and it just goes to show that he developed the diplomatic foundation through Bijou allocation, the police force to crack down on internal crime, the shinobi system to guarantee a future set of new shinobi. I can go on and on. Don't ask me how this dude came up with flying Raijin or Edo Tensei as well. Plus, in combat, he was able to literally lead a squad of top shinobi to face a shinobi god. So, it's very much possible that he could understand and develop a counter strategy for Kamui for something like in his arsenal, as most people do whenever they fight Obito. Well, basically everyone does. Minato does it, Fu does it, Torine does it, Konan does it, Itachi could do it, Pain could do it. They literally all had plans or were going to counter it, and Konan is the most like Lord Second in his tandem paper bombs. This technique could bomb Hashirama's largest deity gate, something above a 10 tails Bijou bomb, though this one likely wasn't infused with chakra, although that's not really what's important. It's the consistency for how long the bombs can go off. Whether or not, they could go on for 10 straight minutes like Konan's it's unknown. However, even in that case, then, like with, Konan, Obito could just use Izanagi, which, if that were to happen, then Obito's arsenal is actually quite crazy, though he does favor his fire style in ones like the Bomb Blast Dance, something to be potentially countered through large-scale water dragons and whatnot. He also has access to all of Madara's weapons, seeing as he actually got all of his large-scale shuriken, biju rods, etc. from Madara's cave, which Tobirama would then recognize, through not just having fought numerous Uchiha who would wield them like the ones who killed his brother, but they are Madara's literal weapons. Again, another weird thing about this matchup. However, I would venture to suggest that Obito is actually better at using them than Madara is. For Obito, he doesn't actually have to throw them, but he just blasts them out of his eye at a speed much greater than what Madara could throw them at, matching his much faster Yasuka beads, wherein they wouldn't just be faster than Obito himself, but even those higher tier forms of relative characters like Madara. He can then just relocate from behind you or even in the sky, flying down with the shuriken in hand. If Tobirama were to use a water wall, then we see against Kakashi that blocks 6 shuriken through up in the mud wall, like how Tobirama blocks the flame bombs with a water wall. Obito could then just hold the 2 shuriken and fly straight through it using Kamui, slicing Kakashi like how he could slice Tobirama, potentially enabling a Kenjutsu bout, of the which Tobirama might have a skill edge, but I digress. Obito's typical speed is not only relative to Madara's own speed along with his other jutsu and whatnot, but it's more importantly better linked to KCM2 Naruto than Tobirama is, meaning that the only way Tobirama would get out of this would be flying Raijin, perhaps as a means to counter any surprise biju rods from flying out of Kamui right behind him. Tobirama is a sensory ninja, something even his elder brother relied on, though both he and Minato have the exact same feats. Putting a finger to the ground to note 20 shinobi and an attribute about them, sense a potent chakra from a country away. Both he and Minato likewise though have to allocate chakra to do so. It's not passive. Obito could then sneak up on Minato and probably could then do the same as well on Tobirama, potentially landing a minor hit, but no large jutsu are going to just kill him, as he should at least notice that and teleport away. Meaning all in all, this battle is actually quite close and weirdly thematic at every corner. I would even recommend watching this video again sometime with that point in mind, and it's actually slightly uncanny, but Obito should be able to just chip away at Tobirama as the fight progresses. He seems to have more win cons than Tobirama in things like a late game Kamui and the shuriken, which would allow for him to also hold the advantage in the long range position. He can win a battle of attrition as well, showing literally the most insane endurance feats from basically anyone. Their elemental clashes are almost identical, with Tobirama perhaps having the edge there, wherein he could also change the terrain, but we have seen Obito fight on an ocean before against paper bombs as well. If he were to bring those out, he has Izanagi for a greater off-guard attack than Tobirama's MO, so all in all, most things do go to Obito, albeit slightly. This isn't accounting for the Renegon though, where he didn't use it much initially for the reason that Naruto and Ko knew how to counter it, but we did see him use the animal path for the Jinchuriki. He uses Kakashi's chakra cloak and then proceeds to fight him with Renegon rods, all of which he could then use on Tobirama effectively, like absorb his water style and toss another fire one out. He could then, he has like the Genjutsu advantage, though Tobirama might, though I stress might, have the Bringer of Darkness, but is that really Madara level Genjutsu? Probably not, and was likely created for other Uchiha like Setsuna, but yeah, therefore most things go to Obito, again, just slightly. I've also thus far omitted the Geto Mazo from this discussion, which is by far Obito's best attribute, as in if he could play it right with this, he actually wins probably like 2 more times out of 10. Tobirama was inferior to his elder brother and Madara, despite being faster, likely due to his lack of large-scale avatar-related power, and this beast is above the combined might of the fully transformed 8-Tails, KCM1 Naruto, etc, so yeah, this is again a really good fight. I would actually give it to the masked man like 6.5, maybe 7 out of 10 times, but what did you guys think? Did you enjoy? If so, then subscribe. I've enjoyed these more detailed one-on-one fights, so let me know how you like them. Want a commission and maybe a video of your own, a one-on-one fight you want to see? Then check my post. But regardless, may God bless you all. Love you guys.